Welcome back to the Dream Support Podcast. Typically on this podcast, we share stories from leaders who are actively working with a Dream Support executive assistant, hearing how they freed up time, gained focus, and started to operate at a higher level. But today's episode is a little bit different and honestly really important, because one of the things we've noticed over the years is this. Some leaders come to us thinking their problem is time, but what's really going on is something deeper. They don't just need help doing the work, they need help organizing their thoughts, making decisions, and actually following through on what matters most. And that's where today's guest comes in. Kris is an efficiency coach who focuses on something called executive function skills. Basically, the internal systems that allow us to plan, prioritize, regulate, and execute our lives well. So in this conversation, we're going to explore why overwhelm isn't always a workload problem, why even high-capacity leaders can struggle with simple tasks, and how to know whether you need better systems, better support, or both. I think this episode is going to help a lot of you put language to something you've been feeling for a long time. So let's jump in. Here's my conversation with Kris. Well, most leaders think that their problem is time, right? But what if it's something deeper? What if it's something that you don't realize that it's there? Kris, you help people who feel completely overwhelmed, but not in a way that people might expect. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm an efficiency coach and I help people with their self-management skills, often through times of crisis or transition or leveling up, some kind of thing like that, where you might have more stress than usual, different season of life. Micah, it is not just about time. We can kind of pass that off as a nice excuse sometimes, but more often than not, there's a lot more going on in our brain. So we have these things called, we all have them. They're called executive function skills. In layman's term, you can think self-management, which is kind of why I introduced my coaching in that way. And self-management skills are basically the thing that we use to live our lives, which still sounds super vague, but things like the way we control our emotional responses, our stress level, our thinking, and then our tasks, our organizing, planning, prioritizing, and our time management. And then ultimately how we optimize all of those things, right? So we can reflect back and think, oh, that wasn't the best way to do that. I need to do it differently. Or we can think ahead, set a goal, and pursue it. So a lot of times there's many number of those things that are going on, not just I need more hours in the day, right?
I talk to a lot of people who, they need some kind of help. They're overwhelmed in their work, they're overwhelmed in their life, and obviously our offering is providing remote executive assistance to busy leaders who are kind of overwhelmed from that stuff. But sometimes they're not even ready for that because they're not in a place mentally where they can actually engage fully in that. And so they're still overwhelmed because they haven't really dealt with those things themselves. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
I have several clients who have come to me and they say, okay, I have this new assistant. She was supposed to fix all my problems, or he was supposed to be the thing that, launched me into the next level.
Yeah.
But now I just feel more overwhelmed because I don't know what to tell them what to do, which is true. It is 100% true. They are two very different things that you need to have the organization, the capacity, which comes from efficiently organizing all those other things in your life so that you can think, okay, how can I actually move the ball forward rather than just getting stuck in all of kind of the mundane things, right? And even in order to pass off some of those things, you have to be able to know what to tell someone, right? So you have to organize your own thinking, your own planning, your own desires and emotions and thoughts, right? Like, where am I trying to get to rather than just, I wish somebody would read my mind, right?
Right.
Because I think a lot of people want that in whatever they
Absolutely.
call support. They just want someone to read their mind and do it.
And there is a level to which someone could get so close to someone and really understand how they work that they do a little bit of that. It feels like magic in a way. They're kind of like, how did you know I needed that? Like, well, I kind of know you now.
Right.
And that kind of, can help as well.
You
But
could call that anticipation, right?
coupled with just, knowing someone and knowing where their weaknesses are and
Sure.
going to need help. There are certain people that I work with that are clients of ours that their assistant comes to me and asks me questions. I'm like, well, let me tell you about that person. Okay. This is always going to be something that they're dealing with. And this is going to be how you can help them with that, because they're probably not going to change that part of them. So
Sure.
anyway,
Absolutely.
so if someone is thinking, well, maybe I have some challenges in this same area, they're like,
Sure.
maybe this is what's going on. I've been feeling like something's a little bit
Mhm.
off. How would they self-identify that?
I think a lot of the phrases that I hear, again, when I start with new clients, it's definitely the word overwhelmed, right? Often the word stuck, often things like, I've tried so many things and I still can't be different. And it's this idea of, I don't like who I am, not necessarily in a character issue or any of those kind of
Uh-huh.
things, but like, I don't like the way my life is going. I wish there were a better way, or I want a different way to be in my life, whether it's I have this big vision and dream and, place that I want to get to. And I'm here and I don't know all the ways to get there, right? Like I've kind of tried a few things, or I've got this idea in my mind and I can't make it happen. Those kind of ways, whether those are health goals or, financial goals or career goals or relationship goals, any of those things that are kind of out there. And you feel like this is the person I want to be, and I keep taking a stab at it, but I can't quite get there. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
kind of like not being who I really want to be, who I think I
Yeah.
am on the inside? Yeah.
So a little bit of a dissatisfaction with how life is going in general, but also like how the individual is handling the things in front of them.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. A lot of times people, when I say efficiency coach, they're like, oh, just so I can get more done. And it is 100% actually not that. It's the opposite. So that I can open up capacity in my mind, right? Like if I'm doing these things internally, regulating my desires and emotions and thinking and attention, then I'm able to open up that flow of capacity to get some things done and ultimately to do what I really want to do, whether that's create some new project or business or hobby or relationship or health goal, whatever it might be. It's running these kind of undertones efficiently so that we can do what we really want to do, live out a meaningful life with purpose and fulfillment. So it's really creating the capacity to be the person that you are on the inside, and you want someone to help you like pull that out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've heard people talk about similar things in terms of like clearing the cobwebs in
Yeah.
the brain,
Yeah.
clearing the clutter, trying to get to underneath that to see how the floorboards are. And what do you think if someone is just to kind of keep going and not really address these things or not really deal with these kinds of things, what's the cost of that?
My first word is burnout. Just disappointment, burnout, kind of meh, as my teenagers would say, just why am I doing this? What am I here for? It's I feel like a lot of people get that dissatisfaction, and there are varying degrees of dissatisfaction, right? But where you're kind of like just looking around and a bit of a groundhog's day, like, really, I'm just going to do this again, you know? Maybe I just aged myself on the reference, but
Good movie.
yeah, yeah, it was. It was a lot of life lessons in that one, I'll
Yeah.
tell you. But just this sense of like, ugh, like not really a lot of joy, a lot of purpose, a lot of fulfillment in our lives, I think would be, to your point, like what happens if we don't address that, if we don't clear out the cobwebs or whatever analogy we want to use, right?
Yeah. If I think about like really smart, capable leaders, and they have a lot of, from the outside capacity. They could do big things. They can make a big difference in the world, and they have passion to do so. But then things simple like details of any manner, or emails, or unread little red bubbles on their phone, or what, like there's so many things that are just stacking and they feel overwhelmed by these things. Why do simple tasks feel so heavy for those people?
And they really do. I totally resonate with that. A couple of things is their strengths are different, right? A lot of high capacity leaders, they're very visionary. They're very like big picture thinkers. They are dreamers in that way. And to some degree, they may have a level of like, how do I make this happen? Right. Some steps along the way. But maybe it's the case that those details really are much bigger to them than they may be to someone who's gifted in that way. Right. So they feel really big. So I would say just say be gracious to yourself, right? Like play into your strengths and pass off what you can to someone who can check your emails. But another part of that is when those things feel really big, those little things feel big, it's because maybe we're feeling avoidant, right? Like we're just avoiding those big things and maybe they aren't as big as we think they are, right? I know for myself, a lot of times when I just, okay, I'm going to block off this time, go through my emails. Then when I start going through, oh, well, it didn't take me near as long as I thought it was going to. And so sometimes both of those things actually play into one another. So when it is a weakness, maybe we call that a shadow strength, right? Like the shadow side of ourselves, it feels harder to do that. So we make it into something bigger. So what I always tell my clients is like, okay, it sounds like that's an avoidance issue, but think about why you're avoiding it. It's very often connected to an emotion of, I don't want to be bored. Bored is an emotion. I don't want to be like rejected, right? In the sense of my work is rejected, or I don't want, if I'm tackling some big offer, I don't want it to get rejected, right? Or just fear of missing something I'd rather be doing, right? That whole FOMO, right? So a lot of times if we can name the emotion, which I know emotions, like a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't have those. We all do. We all do. That's probably the place to start. It's just naming it for what it is and knowing like, okay, I can manage my emotions, right? I can be over them. They don't have to overtake me. I'm going to be bored for a little while and I'm going to knock it out. And so when we can name those things for what is motivating our avoidance, then a lot of times we can just push through. Or I always tell my clients, put a carrot on the other side of it, you know,
Mm,
do something rewarding after, whatever that looks like. I'm okay with
reward.
bribing myself and doing a little mind hack there.
In a former time, I was a pastor, right? So we planted a church and I was trying to help people learn how to read scripture. So I want, that's a habit that as a pastor, I would like people to have. So we decided to go through the Psalms together through a month. And part of our little incentive was we were going to we were going to abstain from chocolate until we read, and then we'd get ourselves one M&M. And so that like helped reinforce that little reward after we did the thing we're trying to train ourselves to do. And so I
Awesome.
feel like that's a really helpful, giving yourself a little bit of a carrot on the end of the,
It is.
yeah.
And totally to your point, Micah, like building those routines, and especially if we think about it, we're learning new skills, right? Which
Totally.
is another thing I wanted to say about the high capacity leaders, right? These are skills that they can build, these executive function skills. We can all build them, right? So it doesn't address the fact that, oh, we're lazy or unmotivated or all of those things. Those are two different parts of our brains. And building skills, especially in the beginning, it's going to take some elementary strategies, right? Like giving yourself one M&M after that, or walk around the block, whatever it might be. And being, again, gracious with yourself, knowing, okay, this is the process of building skills.
So when someone, I mean, I told you already that, we have clients come to us who are overwhelmed from different reasons. Some of them are ready to have an assistant and some of them are not. And then we have the gamut between. And I always tell people like, you're probably not ever going to be like ready, like everything's going to be perfect. There's going to be a little bit of figuring it out. But what would get someone to a acceptable level of ready in your professional experience to actually take on an assistant to help them with their tasks and overwhelm in that way?
Oh, great question. Yeah. Like the pre-work to get to you, right? Yeah. That
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like that. I think if you can in a regular way organize your own time and task lists. So a lot of times leaders who are close to being ready, right, for your remote assistants, then they have a lot of maybe unstructured time and a really long to-do list. And some of those things on the to-do list are today. And some of them
Yeah.
are for the vision that I've got for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times our to-do list is really disorganized. And then our time is really open. Whew, it's hard to put those two things together, you know? So when you can confidently look at your list and organize what goes where, then you're ready to give off, to hand off to someone. Okay, this is what needs to be done today, or this is what, is going to move the ball forward for my vision goals. Be
Super
ready.
insightful. Visionary leaders, serial entrepreneurs, these kinds of people who are always, they have these big visions. They want to accomplish something really big. They have a lot that they would need to do that. And then also, because of the way their life is, they have so much unstructured time. They have to figure out how to organize that themselves. Then there's the problem of they enjoy doing certain things over other things. So whether it's the most important thing or the most timely thing, they're like, I just want to do the thing I like to do. So that's
Yes,
another issue that people deal with
exactly.
as well.
Yes.
And I always
Yeah.
tell leaders, like, it's okay to be selfish and keep a couple of those really enjoying. You don't have to delegate the things that you really like to do.
Sure.
Just because you're CEO founder doesn't mean you can't jump on a sales call if you
Right.
really enjoy them. Like, it's going to be really
Well,
impactful to that
especially,
person,
yeah,
you know?
and life-giving to you, and it keeps you in,
Yeah.
like, motivated in the whole deal. If you
Yeah.
can
So I think that's really important to keep in mind as well as
Mhm.
people are trying to organize themselves. It's okay
Mhm.
to keep a couple of those things, but don't keep everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't keep everything.
Yes, that is a really good way of thinking about it. And, to my point of efficiency, right? Because that's what I'm all
Uh-huh.
about, is
Yeah.
keeping those things that, again, are life giving, that you are really good at, that keep your why really big in your own mind. And then being able to hand off some of those. And also kind of knowing what your cost is, right? If you hop on that
Totally.
sales calls because that's what you love, that's great. But you can't hop on everyone, because
Right.
that's going to cost your business, right? That's going to cost your
Sure.
bottom line because that's where your time goes. To your point, you got to hand
Yeah.
off some. So,
Yeah. When you're the top leader of the organization, the venture, the business, the ministry, you have to think about how much total revenue are you responsible for? Like, just at the top, you're at the top. So all the revenue you're responsible for, and then divide that in your time, and you know the cost of your time.
yeah.
So that's a pretty good defining moment there.
Yes.
Should I really spend my time doing this if it's going to cost that much, or that's how much it should
Right.
produce?
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
really like, I really like the idea that you can't delegate what you can't define.
Mm,
And so what you're doing is helping people organize themselves in a way that it's easier to define what it is that needs to happen and who needs to do it.
yes, very much so.
What would be, I think you showed me a little PDF, right? That kind of showed the hierarchy, the triangle, or the
Yeah.
pyramid, I should say,
Yeah.
of these things. I'll make sure that the audience
Okay.
gets these, but would you walk that through real quick?
And it's a breakdown of executive function skills. So the very first piece of our follow through, our execution is to regulate internally. So we regulate in four main areas. We regulate our desires so that we're not impulsive,
Mm-hmm.
regulate our emotions so that we can identify them and receive information, but not let them overtake us. We regulate our thinking so that we can be flexible in our thinking and shift when things change, when we need a new way of doing things, problem solve, but we don't get too loosey goosey where we can't make a decision, right? So we're going to regulate it, keep it in the fairway. And then we regulate our attention so that we can focus on the important things of the moment, not just the interesting, fun, easy ones, right? So we can lock in when we need to. And be able to have time to enjoy the things that we do want to do. So when we can hold our internal regulation solid and steady, then we can execute, have some external things to show for it, initiating a task and completing it all the way through. Hopefully. We can organize our thinking and our environment, right? Our desk, our files, be able to reach for things when we need them. And then we can manage our time again so that we have a realistic understanding of how long things take. And then we can plan and prioritize, knowing that, okay, this is the most important step. I have to have this before I move to that, the fun or whatever. So when we can do those external things, then ultimately we get to a place to be able to optimize our thinking. So that's when you think of like metacognition, right? When you can reflect back and think like, oh, I'm always late for work. What can I do differently? Right. Or something more meaningful than that. Or we can look forward and set a goal, know the good things we're going to have to say no to get to our goal, right? To stay on track and to be persistent in that, to stay the course, to be resilient to get there. So that's optimize. That's when we can optimize. Many people align this, rightfully so, with when our frontal cortex comes together in our brain, our prefrontal cortex. Sometimes people are saying 25 at the age of 25 now. I've heard as late as 30, although I'm not willing to go there. I think we can do we can do it earlier than 30. But when that comes together, then we can reflect back. We can optimize. We can become efficient and have like those open capacities in our minds to be able to get those things running along daily and think on long-term vision.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have 3 kids, and my oldest recently told me that actually happens at 35. I was like, I don't think so. I think 25 is the number. But he told me that. He heard
Good
that
for you.
somewhere. And then my youngest son, we have a daughter, and then my youngest son, he is all over the place. He's not organized in his brain. He's not organized in himself, which is normal. Boy, he's about to be 12. But
Very normal.
but for him, I think there's a little bit of extra challenge, if I'm biased on that. But how do we help our kids, even when they're not totally, their frontal lobe is not fully developed and all that stuff? Like, how do we help them be somewhat organized, or at least have progress towards?
Yeah, great question. And just to say, Micah, I work with adults, but I have almost this question every week. Do you work with kids?
Totally.
And of course, I have a background and yes, I have and do. But the thing is, we can't control their development, but we can support it. Right. So if we can think about that, especially as parents, like I can't control where they are in their developmental stage, but I can support it. Because I think that helps us not take it personally. Number one, not get too irritated when it's not there, but also creating an environment, right? So a structured environment where we are regulated, because the best thing for a dysregulated person is a regulated person. So we can remain calm internally, calm in our environment, organized in our thinking, so that we can have a lot of grace for and capacity when they aren't regulated, right? Simple reminders, very clear language, whether it's, the backpack that the paper's going out, going all around. And I think just very kindly and patiently, again, your own internal regulation, just, picking up the things and with simple things like, oh, when we can organize our space, we'll be able to go back and find it easily. Some really calm, kind thing. So that's kind of the way we can support that development, knowing that they aren't fully responsible for it just yet.
Yeah.
Just by design.
I think a lot of people will resonate with that idea, because we all, even if they're not our kids, we're interacting with kids somewhere.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
It's everywhere. And we forget, I
Right.
think,
Right.
that they're not fully developed. They don't have the same capacity in their brain. They're not there yet. They don't even understand what we're talking about right now. So, I think we forget some of that stuff and we think, well, I can help them come along a little bit faster.
Sure. I'll be the one parent who forced that development a little faster. Yeah. And I don't want to miss the opportunity just to talk about screens and the distraction that really for all of us. When I say my own internal regulation, that means I put my phone away, that I'm modeling that not only for my kid, but also for me to step away. right? Whether I know work stuff is urgent and it feels like I have to respond right now. And that's part of regulating my thinking, right? So that I'm thinking in a way that says, hang on, that can wait. I'm going to set that
Yep.
aside. And for our kids to be seeing that. So
Oh,
just
guilty
had to
as
get a little
charged.
soapbox in there.
Guilty as charged. I mean,
Yeah.
my daughter recently pointed out, you're doing the dad walk. And she defined the dad walk as walking with my head down, looking at my phone down the hallway. I was like,
Mhm.
interesting. Okay. I need to
Ooh,
figure that one out.
I think that's a conviction
You
for
know,
all. That's right.
yeah. I mean, I can't imagine I'm the only one
No.
on the stand right now. So yeah, I think that that's really important, and it's not unseen.
Mm.
Oh,
And we are
it's
affected internally. Our internal regulation is directly connected to screens. It really is, whether we like to believe it or not. And
totally
I
it pulls us
need,
in, like our brain, our attention, it pulls us in
Mhm,
around us. So yeah,
mhm.
totally.
Yeah, it's really attacking all those skills. So just a
All
thought.
right, I'm gonna step off that
All right.
witness stand there for a second. What do you think? What are the biggest lies leaders believe about productivity?
The biggest lie I think is the more I get done, the better I'll be.
Hmm,
Want me to say
that's
more?
pretty
Or
good.
is that enough?
That's great. Another question though, what do you think the most common mistake your clients make is?
Oh, shaming themselves, thinking
Okay.
I should be able to do this myself. I can't believe I'm X age and still need some help with this.
Yeah. Like
Another lie, I suppose.
totally.
Yeah, just
Totally.
that. Yeah, turning it internal, like as an accusation, right? Because the truth is, we all need help. Life is a team sport, as I like to say. We weren't made to live it alone. We all have strengths, weaknesses, seasons of life where we can support one another. And that's where the good stuff is anyway, right? We lean into those connections and those supports. Like it's a win win. I love what I do. So
Would you say that efficiency isn't about getting more done, but about sort of enjoying your life and what you do?
being efficient to get the things, sort of the have tos of life, right? In order to enjoy the get tos of life. Yeah. Because I feel like in our culture, all of those have tos have just kind of overtaken all of us so that we are overwhelmed, right? There's not this open space to be bored, think, create, connect, right? It's just all jumbled up and all eaten away with the have tos. So when we can put them in their place, because they exist, we got to eat, we got to make money, we got to live, all of that, got to pay rent. So when we can get them in their right space, then we can open up for other more purposeful, more fulfilling, more meaningful opportunities in life. Yeah.
That
Definitely
makes me
not about getting more done, but
Yeah,
about getting
it
the right
it makes
thing.
me think about like people. I get the sense, and maybe I'm not correct, but I get the sense that people really believe freedom is found in the unbound and unstructured day and time. But they're like, I want freedom. I really want freedom. I don't want to be tied to a desk. I don't want to be tied to whatever. And I understand all that. And then underneath that is, I just want openness. I don't want a calendar. I just want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it in the moment I want to do it.
Mm. Mm.
And that to me sounds great for vacation and terrible for the rest of life.
Yes. I couldn't agree
Uh,
more.
because I think that structure, giving ourselves a structure, gives us a framework to actually do what we really want to do or
Absolutely.
to do.
Yeah.
So I just
Yes.
see that. Do you see that as well?
I couldn't agree more, Micah. Yeah. In fact, I like to say I have a bittersweet relationship with routine, structure, and rhythm, and well, with structure, because sometimes, honestly, I resisted because who doesn't want to have all the time in the world to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it? It sounds really good. kind of reminds me of Peter Pan, maybe. You know, kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, but the truth of the matter is, like, I do work so well in structure when I can implement my routines and have those things around me that hold me in. Then it's like I know where I am in space, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I can move freely, right? Because when we actually have so much unstructured time in our day or in our minds or whatever it is, it really does become more flailing, right? And it definitely is harder to get any balls moving forward, right?
Mhm.
Because you are just kind of flailing. And you're right, that's great for vacation, but it, it's not what thriving is about. And I even think of like structure being like the infrastructure of of our roads and highways, right? I mean, if they weren't there and people were just, kind of driving all around or flying all around or whatever, totally chaotic, right?
Yeah.
But having the infrastructure there, which is very, simple analogy, but it's true. Like then we have the freedom to all be moving about in a way that makes sense, in a way that does provide freedom. So,
That's good.
in
Yeah.
a-
I have this theory that people go on vacation and they reach a point in vacation where they say, should we just move here? And it's not about the place, it's
Mhm.
about that they don't have to do anything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they're just sort of, spending money and not worrying about where it's coming from and just, enjoying. And they want all of life to feel like that. And that's not reality for most of us. That's going to
Mhm.
be reality for a few people once they've hit a certain income.
Mhm.
I just think that structure uh, of some kind creates behaviors, systems create
Mhm.
behaviors. And so if you don't like the behavior, you got to change the system. I think that can get you a lot farther.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, and to your point, maybe some of us will get to the place where there's sort of unlimited resources and unlimited opportunities. But I'm honestly not sure. I've met some of those people, and I don't know that that's where it's at either. I'll just throw that in. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that that is actually the way to live the most fulfilling life.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, still need structure, and we do work better in some containment in a healthy way.
So if somebody was to say, okay, I really think I need to talk to someone like Kris, like who can help me organize myself, my ideas, my thoughts, give some structure to my life and help hold me accountable. What does that look like?
Mhm. So the way I love to work with people is kind of an intense launch or boost into these strengthening these executive function skills. So most of my clients I work with on a daily basis. So for a 3-month commitment, 12 weeks or so, we have a 1-hour call every week where we reflect on a lot of things, obviously planning and any, hot spots that are coming up, but looking at our nutrition, anything that we're putting into our body and what that would what the results would be, our movement and exercise, our sleep, because it's a big contributor to our clear-minded thinking, and also our community so that we're not living in isolation, but we're actually connecting with other humans, and recovery time, right? So kind of why are we doing all this? Where do I have some space to let loose, right? And have that open creative space. And for a lot of people, that recovery piece includes their spiritual lives, right? So there's something bigger than me that I'm living for. So we touch on all 5 of those areas because all of those have a direct connection to our clear-minded thinking. And then I call my clients every day.
Wow.
So we have goals that we have. We have, we can work through those every day. We look at our big unstructured time and all of our to-do list, right? And thinking about what's the best thing to do first. I talk about strategies for those things. If you had 2 or 3 things that you could get done before your 1 o'clock meeting, what could that be? How will you know you're on pace? Right? And maybe obviously different clients have different goals, but some people want to do like their kind of normal mundane task in the morning and leave the afternoon for the strategic goals, right? For those tasks that are going to move the ball forward. So we talk through all of those things. And again, it can be professional, relational, health goals, whatever it might be. So we have a check-in call every day for 15 minutes just to kind of set you up for the day, work through a lot of thoughts, do a lot of verbal processing and planning.
Mhm.
So over the course of 12 weeks, we've talked for an hour every week and talked for 15 minutes for 5 days a week. So we can make a lot of progress. It is really exciting to see some relief, some deep breaths, okay, oh, I can do this. I can do this. I do a lot of celebrating and not just like fluffy celebrating, but like, hey, you did that. You did that for 5 days in a row. Don't miss what you just did. You grew a lot. That's growth. That's skills. Let's do some more. What's the next layer? So I did a lot of taking you where you are and just taking the next step and the next step and the next and building on that momentum. I am definitely not a counselor. I encourage people to seek counselors. I have my own. That's great. Sometimes emotions come up and we
Sure.
kind of got to get them out before we can be productive with our day. So I can hold that sometimes, but I always direct people to a counselor when it, becomes a pattern and they need some deeper insight. But what I am doing is taking today and making it practical, taking it one step so that when you're building those skills, then the things that bubble up are, what can I delegate? Oh, this I could give off. Oh, this is organized. I can ask someone to take over that, right? Checking my emails, right?
Mhm.
Doing other tasks, documents, paperwork, whatever, managing my calendar, those
Good.
kind of things. So we're working on those skills. And again, 3 months can be a pretty different person if you want to be.
Yeah, it sounds fairly intense with the daily kind
Yeah.
of calls and things like that. It sounds like it's fairly intense, and you're really walking with them for a stint that you could see a lot of growth. Something
Right.
you said in there was good, I thought, and I don't remember the exact words, but it was basically like, if you see that you have a little bit of time and you have a pretty big task, let's see how much you can do, or see if you can do these 2 or 3 things before your 1 o'clock call or whatever it is. And
Right.
I
Right.
have this little timer, this little kitchen timer. It's like from Amazon.
Perfect.
And so
Is that your best friend?
if I have like 20 minutes and I'm like, okay, I got 20 minutes before this next thing or whatever, I can
Mhm.
just put 20 minutes in and be like, all right, let's go, and try to knock out as much as I can from a to-do list.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a game. Like, how much can I do in this time
Yeah.
frame? It's a little challenge to myself.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and then it
That's perfect.
dings, and then I'm okay. Now I'm going to get back to this other thing that I have on my
Yeah.
calendar.
Right.
So just for those filler moments that I'm like, okay, I have 20 minutes, I have 30 minutes, I have some
Mhm.
small chunk of time, and I've got a big to-do list. What can I do right now in there? So that's just a little hack that I have
I
found.
love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm constantly throwing out different ones, what I call just brain hacks like that, right? Just kind of brace yourself or whatever it might be. But it's kind of what we need in the moment to get it going, to
Right.
initiate, right? Yeah.
Totally.
I would like to add, Micah, that I work with groups as well. So if there
Okay.
are leadership teams that
Mhm.
want to work through these skills, there's a ton of great opportunities, obviously for team building, but for taking the whole team through these efficiency growth opportunities, whether it's through communication or the way the team works or the way the team respects one another, right? And their like lock in times and knowing what a realistic expectation and those gaps. So over the course of 9 months, we kind of work through a curriculum of all of these executive function skills together so that you're getting that in your own individual life, but your team is growing as well.
Yeah, that's helpful. I'm sure that there are people who have teams. They're like, okay, there's 5 people that
Yeah.
ought to learn these skills that I'm working with. I'm one of them, and maybe these
Yeah.
4 other people need to also, and they have the capacity and they are the decision maker who can make that happen.
Yeah, it's true. And it's a way to get everybody on the same page language wise and hopefully fill in some of those gaps there. So it definitely is. If you feel like you're doing great at your executive function skills, but all those around you need some help, then I do a workshop kind of thing, or definitely like following
Yeah.
people on with group coaching like that.
I bet the people who are having high success with self-regulation and these skills would hear this and not feel convicted, but curious and want to grow even still and learn. because they're like, oh yeah, these are really helpful things. I see the value. I do some of them. I bet I could do better. So there's growth for all of us.
And a lot of people do think of like, oh, I get my stuff done. I meet all my deadlines. I do all this, like that external piece. But really, it's going to lead to burnout if you're not internally regulated, right? You're either going to burn yourself out or scorch all your relationships. So if you're that type A that's like knocking out all this stuff, heads will roll if this doesn't happen, that kind of guy, then that's not really good on the inside either. That's not good. That's not going to be sustainable. So I think we can all, to your point, grow in all areas, right, of that kind of, and especially in our world that is just bombarding us with all kinds of other messages, right? I think growing in these skills, no matter where we are, is a great opportunity to increase capacity, enjoy our lives more, right? More fulfilling.
Yeah. So let's say someone says, again, I'd like to work with Kris. Where do they go? How do they reach you?
Yeah, for sure. I have an easy website to contact me on. So it's krishabashy.com. Super easy. It's a contact page, and I'm super quick about getting back in touch. So really easy process there. And I have a complimentary discovery call. So 30-minute discovery call for anyone just to talk through this and see if it's an alignment, and whether that would be for a group that you're leading, or for yourself as well, or scheduling a workshop or whatever. It's the best way. I probably does not surprise you. I like human interaction. So, Zoom is always great. And I have clients around the country, which makes it super nice as a coach, just to be able to not have those barriers. So my time zones are flexible.
I'm sure that somebody out there is going to be like, hey, I need to talk to Kris. And then once you've got yourself regulated and all that stuff, you come back and you talk to me too.
There we go. So, that's exactly right. We'll do step 1, step 2 for sure.
There's a 1-2 punch there, because when you are there, you're like really primed for someone to come right alongside you. You have clarity. You understand what you're trying to do, what you should do versus what other people should do, and all that kind of stuff. And we can get you support. So anyway, thanks again for being here.
Micah, it was so great. I really appreciate you creating this opportunity and giving me some time here. I love the connection with you and like-mindedness on so many things. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. I hope that conversation was as helpful for you as it was for me. One of the biggest takeaways for me is this: you can't delegate what you can't define. And for a lot of leaders, the reason things feel overwhelming isn't just because there's too much to do. It's because there's no clear internal system for how to decide what matters, when to do it, or how to follow through. That's what Kris does so well, helping leaders build that internal clarity and consistency. And then on our side, what we do at Dream Support is come alongside that clarity and help you actually execute it through a remote executive assistant who can take things off your plate and create real, lasting margin. So it's not really an either-or conversation, it's a both and. If this episode resonated with you, here's a simple next step. Ask yourself, is my biggest challenge right now knowing what to do, or actually having the capacity to do it? Your answer to that question will tell you a lot about what you need to do next. And if you're interested in learning more about Kris and her work, we'll have links in the show notes. And if you're feeling ready to explore what it would look like to work with a Dream Support executive assistant, you can head to dreamsupport.club and fill out our quick interest form. We'd love to connect. As always, thanks for listening. Remember, you dream, we support. God bless. See you next time.